Hi everyone, this is Professor JPS, and this is part 3 for Communication Arts 101, Section 1, that deals with a review for the exam next Wednesday, March 23rd. Today is Friday, March 20th, but I'm just trying to get ahead of the game so students can take a look at this information for next Wednesday's exam. This section will discuss advertising and what you need to look for the examination. In terms of the textbook, I'd like you to take a look at page 91, and it literally has a definition of advertising. Take a look at that. It has to do with the idea that it's an actual payment of actual money to buy actual airtime or ad space to convince the public to purchase something that they're selling, and all of the ideas that go within advertising. And page 92, advertising agencies, understanding that there's an actual corporation that is responsible for the creative output of advertising. It's not the people who make the products themselves, it's only the people who try to sell the products. That's what an ad agency does. In other words, McDonald's or Budweiser or Viagra, they don't make their own advertising. They hire people who are creative to try to, in very small 30-second or sometimes 60-second commercials, either on the internet or on television or on radio or billboards or newspaper advertising or magazine advertising. These ad agencies are very clever in how they can just make a very short, succinct message as to care about the product themselves. The product is not important to them. It's the selling of the product. That's what an ad agency does. And ad agencies are discussed on page 92. Another important aspect of the textbook for advertising is page 98 and branding. Branding is trying desperately to make your product stand out in the marketplace, the name of your product above all else. And the product has to be reasonably good too, but branding is a very, very important corporate strategy that advertisers stick to. So you have, like Nike or Amazon or Apple that are very, very important brands. And all other people who are trying to become as large or medium sized, they stick to this notion of branding. So when people think of that particular brand, when they think of a particular product, like for instance, when I was growing up, you no longer just made a copy of something, you Xeroxed it. That was a way in which the Xerox company tried to push their brand forward by putting the corporate name and making it into a verb, right? You're Xeroxing a piece of paper rather than copying it. So every time you think of copying paper, you think of the Xerox Corporation. And those things, I think, are more important than we take those for granted. We don't realize that that's happening as much as it is in advertising. So branding is a very, very important notion. And the textbook deals with an example about Pepsi and Coke and off-brand soda, and you should look into that on page 98 of the textbook. The key idea from the advertising chapter, has to do with Sigmund Freud, and his theory of the subconscious mind, which should be in your notes. But I'll go over it a little bit here, okay? What is it? Hold on a second. I'm getting a phone call. Oh. Hello? Hello? Oh. No, that's all right. Sorry, it was just a phone call. I wanted to make sure everything's okay. At any rate, I will, what was I talking about? Oh, Freud and the theory of the subconscious mind. So you may remember this from the textbook. Freud tried to talk about the idea that there's this consciousness that we all have. Consciousness means that we're aware and we're awake and we're thinking, living people, right? And there's a subconsciousness to our life, right? And sometimes when you have dreams, that's your subconscious talking to, and your dreams can be weird or strange or bizarre or whatever, and you don't know what they mean. It could be that it's talking about things that you really feel, but you have to kind of supplement them or push them down in real life, right? So Freud was interested about dreams and why dreams are so strange. And he suggested that maybe the subconscious is broken up into three parts. Well, really two parts. You have the id or ID, which represents all desires, no matter what it is. I want this, I want this, I want this, good, bad, or otherwise. And then there's the opposite of that called the superego, which checks the id's desires. It says, well, maybe you shouldn't want so much. Maybe you should be a bit more frugal or be nicer or not be such a selfish person. And the ego is the balance between those two things. So the id wants and wants and wants and wants, and the superego wants to sort of temper the idea of the id, and the ego suggests that a balance between those two things. So in Freud's mind, that if someone has needs and wants and desires, that's okay, as long as they're not so selfish and horrible and self-destructive. And the superego should be there to help temper the id, so we have a balanced approach of being someone who has needs and desires, but isn't so selfish and horrible. Now, all this means for advertisers is that advertisers are only interested in the id. They're interested in tapping into subconscious desires. And what that reveals is what's called subliminal advertising. Now, in the last lecture, I had suggested that you Google and go through Google images of subliminal advertising. And in subliminal advertising are images that are there to sort of tap into your subconscious desires. Many of them are sensualized or sexualized, right? But it doesn't necessarily have just to be sensualized or sexualized. It can give you a subliminal meaning without you even realizing it. So the key examples were the one from Joe Camel, where it really looks like almost like a sexual thing is occurring right on Joe Camel's face. The Joe Camel ads, if you watch Joe Camel's nose leading into his nostrils, it's almost like a very phallic image, penile-like image entering into a kind of upside-down area of a woman's private parts. It's there and not there simultaneously. You would never notice it unless you point it out. That happens all the time in advertising. There's all kinds of phallic imagery in advertising, and those Google images will show it. There's one with, you could see like a necklace that goes in, that's like a necklace that's phallic shaped, and it's entering a round shaped pendant or I guess another necklace, but it almost looks like it's entering into a, you know what I mean. Anyway, then there's ones that aren't necessarily centralized, like the FedEx, where there's the arrow in between the E and the X, which is sort of tap into your subconscious notion that your package is on its way. Or Amazon with its little line, it's on its way. Or the Wendy's with the mom thing, it's home cooking. It's sort of just past your consciousness into your subconsciousness. Advertisers are definitely interested in tapping into subconscious desires. That's the main idea of the Freudian notion of the theory of the subconscious mind, okay? And that's pretty much the key idea for the advertising section, okay? So I will send out a mass email talking about all of the three of these parts that I will upload today, right? So keep in mind that the will be 4 15-point questions and 15, 30, 45, 60, and then 4 10-point questions, 10, 20, 30, 40, that equals 100. Please convert it to a Word document and send it to me as an attachment. I will send this test out sometime before Tuesday morning, or by Tuesday morning, and I'd like to have it back by Friday noon of next week. Okay? And everybody has to carefully look for your NCC email, okay? And I need to hear from everybody. So stay safe. Good luck. Email me any questions you have. Just make sure to email me who you are, first name, last name, what class you're in, what section, so I'm not hunting you down. Okay? That's very important that you're clear from me and all. Okay? Stay safe and be well. Thanks. Bye-bye.